you, do sack dances, all that cool stuff. And, South Carolina does struggle in pass protection. Ole Miss, it didn't feel like had a big taste for the physical style of football on either side of the ball. So if you're South Carolina, maybe this is the day where you can run it early, smack them in the mouth a little bit, make them have to stop your run game. Like you said, play a little keep away, but score touchdowns when you're playing keep away. And just, again, be really physical with Ole Miss. So that you've kind of got a blueprint here.
Yeah.
If you can follow it. But two of the biggest problems here is South Carolina's, their offensive line, it's been a struggle. Ole Miss has a lot of talent up front defensively. Two is, South Carolina, the little bit of the issue we've seen on defense has been stopping the run game at times. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're going, but what you do know is, and you feel good about is Kentucky went in there and threw around Ole Miss on both sides of the ball, and you're more physical than Kentucky.
Yeah. Ole Miss looked vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing they hadn't really shown through 4 games because they didn't need to because they were beating easy opponents, which is why their numbers were ridiculously good, which is why Jackson Dart had all the best numbers for quarterbacks in the SEC. Came back down to earth a little bit. So you say, okay, and I imagine the collective Gamecock fan base probably feeling a little bit better about this game coming away from Saturday. Now, yes, there is the aspect of, okay, now they're not going to overlook South Carolina where they may have if they dominated Kentucky. So there's that aspect of it, but you got a chance, which is something that I don't think any of us thought prior to the season.
It's one of those things, it's natural. And I thought this is like, I'm like, in a perfect world, Kentucky shows you all of Ole Miss's zits and warts and bunions and everything else, right? And you get to see the weaknesses, but Ole Miss wins the game. That way, they can still overlook you.
Sure.
Now, I'm not going to say they're angry, but they're focused. Because now they've lost. And they lost to a team they shouldn't have lost to.
Right.
So now they're going to be much more focused going on the road to Williams-Brice. Now, does that mean South Carolina doesn't have a chance? No, of course South Carolina has a chance. Again, Ole Miss Kentucky showed you a blueprint. And now you just have to look at that blueprint, see how it applies to you, and go out there and kind of start with that blueprint and then build your game plan toward winning the football game because you can beat Ole Miss. I mean, we saw this. They didn't really like the physical. They didn't like that physical mosh pit kind of football game that Kentucky gave them. You just have to understand that you can be really physical too. You got a hell of a pass rush. If your offensive line can maybe open some holes for your run game, and if you can not let Ole Miss run the football, and you can again muck it up and take the fight to them, could you walk out of Willie B with a W? Absolutely, you could. But understand, now Ole Miss is focused. That's all. Now they're like, oh, we lost the game. We're not as good as we thought we were. We spent a whole week patting each other on the back and telling each other how great we were and getting phone numbers. Now we got to go play football this Saturday and focus on a team that really should be undefeated. And we got to play in their barn. So we got to see something. I didn't expect Ole Miss to lose. I really didn't. I thought when Ole Miss took the lead in the fourth quarter, I believe it was.
Yeah, 17-13.
I was like this. Well, they're going to win the football game. Even when Kentucky was driving, I was like, Ole Miss is going to figure out a way to win the football game.
Yeah, no, I mean, they wouldn't have covered because they were 2 touchdown favorites, something like that. But you would have said, hey, good game, Kentucky. You kept it close again against top 10 team, but no, they won outright.
That's the thing. Until the final score came across my phone as I was keeping up with it, I was surprised. I was like, wow.
Well, when you fumble right into the arms of your tight end, the football gods are smiling on you.
Yes. I don't think they designed that play. Do you?
Not like
you don't think they practiced that one?
Not the fumble Ruski.
I will talk, obviously, Kentucky, Ole Miss. Now we got something going on this Saturday as Ole Miss comes into Williams-Brice. We'll get into that as well. Also, look back on what a hell of a football game Saturday night. Tyler was probably quite composed the entire time. We'll get into Kentucky. We'll get into Georgia, Florida coming up next as well. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Glad you could be hanging. We go till 3 here on the game. halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. On a Reaction Monday, we were not really reacting to any Carolina football. We're reacting to Kentucky upsetting Ole Miss, the opponent this Saturday for South Carolina. And we'll react to what was just a ridiculous football game Saturday night with Georgia, Alabama. I'm sure our Georgia graduate across the glass handled that with nothing but poise and calm.
It was an interesting day, as I described to you earlier, to say the least. The lead up to the 7:30 kick felt like 4 days, honestly.
I was going to say, after what you went through leading up to the game was nothing. The game was a walk.
Yeah, for many people, and including people still without power. You know, the things you're trying to figure out and things you're trying to do to make your situation the best it can, because you don't know what's going to come back on. And shout out to the folks at Dominion Energy. Mine came back on at about 6:30 on Saturday. I was actually here when it came back on because I was like, I had to go somewhere to watch this game.
Funny.
So
You sent me a text. Can I go up to work and watch the game? Sure,
I
man.
was sitting where you're at right now, had the TV on, and oh, hey, my power's back on. Let me go run back home then.
I was like, go get him, dude. I get it.
Listen, I was prepared to be here for 4 hours until about midnight, however long that game took, because I wasn't going to miss it.
No.
Fortunately, power came back on and I could watch it at home.
I mean, it was a ridiculous game. And 1 and 2, I mean, and, before we move forward, because we get sports, which doesn't matter in the big picture of things, Dominion Energy folks, you know, any first responders, rescue people, anybody that had to go out and go above and beyond to do the work that needed to be done to try to get this community back with power. And if anything, anything awful, catastrophic, or inconvenient, or whatever, the people that had to go out and handle the business, the important stuff that had to be handled in our area here, thumbs up to you, man. That was very few realized, most people didn't think it was going to be that.
I thought I was in the middle of a tornado when I woke up on Friday. That's what it sounded like outside.
It was crazy. So again, thank you very much if you were part of the effort, and I hope, however your life is, it's getting itself back to normal, and hopefully you weren't taking too much out of normal to get back into it. So we want to get that out of the way before we move forward. All right, so, I mean, that game, it was so interesting in so many ways. And first of all, I didn't see Alabama being able to do that to the Georgia defense. I just didn't see that happening.
Who could have?
And, I mean, props to the Alabama offensive coaching staff, to obviously the entire offense for the execution, the playmaking ability. I mean, Georgia, I have not seen Georgia tackle that poorly in years. Has a Kirby Smart team, I'll ask you, you watch every one of these games 5 times. Do you remember a Kirby Smart team tackling that poorly?
No, I don't. That was uncharacteristic.
I mean, look, part of it was Alabama's got some dudes on offense that can make you look stupid. I get it. But like the one time on Milroe, was it the first touchdown run, or it was one of the first couple drives, and Georgia blitzed, and they had an open runner right at Milroe and just flat out blew the tackle.
Yeah.
Just flat out blew the tackle. It wasn't like Milroe, broke ankles or threw some kind of spin move or something. Milroe just ran right through the tackle. And, I mean, Georgia just didn't tackle well all night, and especially in the first half. I mean, Alabama just chunks and chunks of yards. I was like, I didn't believe what I was seeing when I was, watching the game, because I was in and out of it because, we had family stuff going on. But every time I turned around, Alabama's another explosive play down the field, running it, throwing it, whatever. And I'm going, hell's wrong with the Georgia defense?
Yeah. No, it really took the halftime adjustments to figure things out in that second half, because they were really getting killed by Milroe on those outside runs. And for most of those, it was one-on-one. And you go one-on-one with Milroe, you're probably going to lose that battle. I don't care how talented you are. So they adjust the defense in the second half, put an extra linebacker out there to where they contained him a lot better. And look, he was the only one really getting a lot on the ground. Jay Miller and Justice Haynes didn't do a whole lot of note, but he just completely took the game over. But they limited him in the second half. But, man, when you got a kid like Ryan Williams on the outside that can make plays the way that he did, not only with the go-ahead touchdown to win the game at the end, but that juggling catch that ended up setting up the field goal that gave him 33 points. Like, he was just making plays, making guys miss. And I told you this earlier, Alabama has a legacy of great receivers, in the Saban era. Julio, Mari Cooper, Devonta Smith a couple years ago. Like, Ryan Williams might end up being better than all those guys.
He might, because the legacy of wide receiver which Alabama has become in a lot of ways, well, a lot of you can pick a lot of positions. But the wide receiving talent that has gone to the NFL from Alabama is ridiculous. He might end up in 3 years, if he stays healthy, being the best of the bunch. I mean, that run for the go-ahead touchdown, you don't have words. I mean, there's 2 or 3 guys trying to tackle him, and it's like they're tackling air. It's like he's disappearing and reappearing. It's crazy.
He turned him into a Stooges sketch where they just ran into each other and bonked each other on the head while he's skirting up the sidelines.
It reminds me, and I remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life. Mm-hmm. You ever seen it?
Yeah.
When they're trying to, they're in the scene where the police or the cop is trying to handcuff the angel, and the angel keeps disappearing?
Yeah.
That's what that looked like.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, first of all, again, Georgia DB does not turn and look for the ball. Williams does win the battle for the football. And then just what he did to go down the field was ridiculous to score that touchdown. You're right, that bobbling catch.
Yeah.
The body control, the concentration. And how many times did they say it during the broadcast?
Oh, I lost count. I told people on Friday your drinking game was any reference to his age, whether they said he's only 17 or, wow, a kid this age shouldn't be playing this good. Like, you were probably plastered by the third quarter.
Oh, no doubt. It's just no doubt. I mean, and it reminds you, and look, I get they kind of go overboard on it because after a while we're like, we get it. We understand. We get it. Okay. But the fact that he hasn't turned 18 yet and he's out here making Georgia defensive backs look stupid.
By the way, did you see what he did after he scored that touchdown?
Yeah.
Did the Dirty Bird. He was born in 2007. The Dirty Bird had not been a thing for like a decade.
I was going to say, 98, 97 is when
like
the Dirty Bird, Jamal Anderson, the Super Bowl run year of 98.
His I don't know, his parents were probably in 5th grade when that was a thing.
So funny. But he was really good. Milroe threw the ball well in the intermediate areas, which is not his game.
Yeah,
he went 3 for 3 deep, but he hit a lot of really nice throws intermediate.
He is a more well-rounded, better quarterback than where he was this time a year ago.
And obviously he can make plays with his legs. And look, Kirby and his defensive staff made adjustments and slowed that thing down. Plus, I felt like Alabama... They still played, they didn't play slow, but it didn't seem like they were as aggressive in the second half. Now, part of that could have been the defensive adjustments that Kirby made, to be fair, but Alabama didn't seem to be as aggressive down the field as they were in the first half. And again, there might have been adjustments defensively that took some stuff away, and it affected Bama. But the flip side, watching Alabama on defense, they stopped blitzing.
Yeah.
You look at almost every big play Georgia made in the second half, Bama was rushing 4 and dropping 7. I get it. You got a big lead. You don't want to give up big plays. You don't want to blitz and all of a sudden get burned. But you were getting killed rushing 4. And it was almost like maybe you got to dial it back up again. But give Georgia credit. I mean, most teams who are down 30-7 are done.
Yeah.
Georgia takes the lead. Now, let me ask you, how did you feel when Georgia took the lead? Was it 2:34 to go or 2.5 minutes to go?
I knew they were going to make it interesting. I didn't know if they had enough to get back to lead, and I couldn't believe it, but I didn't have a lot of time to react to it because 13 seconds later, Williams does what he does.
Do you do this? Because when it's involved your favorite team like that, and they come down the field to take the lead, do you then look at the clock and go, oh, the other team's got way too much time?
Always.
Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We will talk more about a big Saturday in college football next on The Game.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Ed and Terry Ford along with you here on this Reaction Monday, continuing to make our way through what happened on Saturday with South Carolina sitting on its bye week. Of course, Ole Miss coming to town this upcoming weekend. Continuing to look at Georgia and Alabama from Saturday, and I think it presents an interesting question of what happens next for Georgia, right? Because it's very clear across the board they aren't as good as they've been in years past. Now, yes, could they still beat the vast majority of teams in college football that went head-to-head? Probably. But compared to Alabama, compared to Ohio State, Texas, these teams that are seen as the elite of the elite in college football right now, I don't know if Georgia quite has the advantage that we thought they were going to have. I brought this point up to earlier to Wes and Chris, and I'll try and find the right way to phrase this because Georgia has a lot of great talent across the board. Great recruiting classes, great transfer portal classes, the whole 9 yards you would expect with Georgia and Kirby Smart. But it was very clear on Saturday to me and to a lot of people that I talked to, the talent level that they have at places like receiver, tight end, running back is not on the same level of eliteness as it's been in years past. I referenced this as well, like Kirk Herbstreit in calling the game on Saturday, mentioned this a couple times, like, man, that's a play that Brock Bowers would have made. That's a catch that, Ladd McConkey would have made. There were dropped passes and all those kind of things, just not as crisp on offense, which is something that they've struggled with a lot this year. And I think that's one of the big differences. Now, yes, they did claw back, and they did end up taking the lead in that game, but you can definitely see a difference between what Alabama has for their offensive weapons and what Georgia has for theirs. Not saying they can't improve, not saying they can't get better as the season goes along. Where they sit right now, there is a difference between those two teams. For Georgia, schedule doesn't get easier. They got to go to Texas in a couple weeks, go to the Grove and Ole Miss. They still got to host Tennessee. Their margin for error got a whole lot thinner. Now, one thing we talked about coming into this game, in the 12-team playoff era, one loss doesn't kill you anymore, right? You're no longer competing for 4 spots, you're competing for 12. So if Georgia can still win 10 games, they're probably in pretty good shape. Now, what second game they could lose, I'm not sure. Because they lose Texas is the number 2 team. That's not, as much shame in that as opposed to losing like Mississippi State or something like that. So all of the goals are still in front of them. I think it's going to be interesting to see what adjustments and what kind of improvements they can make going forward. Because Kirby Smart's really good at learning from whatever went wrong and making sure it doesn't happen again. Developing these guys where they need them to, making the improvements, and being a better team going forward. Can they do that this year? We'll see. On the flip side of things, Alabama. Kalen DeBoer made a statement in his first ever SEC game, which kind of got lost in the shuffle of all this, all that happened on Saturday night. That was his first opportunity to prove himself as an SEC coach. Again, they've handled their business against their non-conference opponents, including that little bit of a scare against South Florida. But for the most part, Kalen DeBoer had done everything right. Coming into Saturday, you had to prove it against a team that's won 2 out of the past 3 national championships. And Kalen DeBoer, as he's done everywhere he's gone up to this point, stepped up to the task. He's a winner, and I feel like there was a lot of people in that fan base that were pleased with what he done so far, but not completely won over. I think Kalen DeBoer won over a lot of people on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, that start, Tide fans were giddy. Then all of a sudden, Georgia takes the lead, and they're like, we blew a 28-0 lead. And then Alabama comes back and wins. So, yeah, they love Kalen DeBoer right now. Look what he did to Kirby's defense. Here's my thing about that, though. Let's just play the what-if game. What if you don't come back and win, and Georgia erases a 28-0 and 37 deficit and beats you? DeBoer's having someone start his car. Someone's giving out his home address. And I really feel bad for the guy answering the phone at our sister station, Jocks in Birmingham.
That is the forever thin line you walk as the head coach at Alabama. Is you can go from here to zero that quick. And again, up to this point, he's done everything he needs to do and won the game on Saturday and beat what was the number 2 team. And everybody is loving him right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And everybody feels good that Bama's still Bama. And everything's okay without Nick. And like I said on Friday, look, everybody's loving all this stuff with new Alabama. And the players are talking and laughing and having fun, and they're doing push-ups on the field. The coaches are, and everybody's all smiley and happy. And that's great. But now what are you going to do against Georgia? And to Alabama's credit, they won. And Kirby still has the stink of Alabama on him. They can't get over. So everybody's feeling good right now. Alabama's number 1 in the country. Jalen Milroe all of a sudden is your, at the end of September, Heisman Trophy winner, for whatever that's worth.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see where it goes moving forward. But that was a hell of a win. It really was. And it stamps Caleb DeBoer as, okay, you're good, dude. You beat Georgia. And that's all that really matters. And again, we'll see where it goes moving forward. But to the point we talked about on Friday, this is not a death sentence for either team if they would have lost.
No, it's not. Georgia's margin for error gets thinner. They still got a really tough schedule: Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee. And I still think you can lose 2 games and be in as a team that was as highly ranked coming in as Georgia was. But there's a lot of things to correct because you still have a lot of elite teams to play that if you can't improve on those things, you'll lose those games too.
Yeah, now you just have to take the good, move forward, fix the bad, and here we go. You've only lost 1 game. Georgia's schedule is not easy. That's the other part. Georgia's schedule, not easy. They got some games. They got to go to Texas. They got some tilts coming. But I think Georgia will be fine. And Alabama, I mean, they got weapons. Whew. They got some weapons. They got some speed. They're an explosive play machine. And, again, Georgia came back from the dead and took the lead in this game late. So both teams have things they can feel good about, and both teams look around going, oh, we got some stuff to fix. But when it's all said and done, Alabama gets the W. But just a fun game, a really fun game. And the one thing with Georgia, and they found it in the second half, Tyler, now they need to build upon it, is they started getting some explosive plays. That had been an issue going into the Bama game, and it was an issue when you were down 30-7. But then in the second half, Georgia started dialing up some stuff. First of all, Carson Beck got time to throw.
Mm-hmm.
And guys were getting open. And I'll tell you, the things that get lost in the game, because there's so many things in this game, not the last throw that was the pick. The throw before, Young's got 2 steps on the corner. And if Beck leads him, Georgia wins the game, or at least takes the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, that game, people could score in 10 seconds. But Georgia would have taken the lead again if Beck leads Young, because Young had 2 steps on the freshman corner, and Beck underthrew it. And it's funny, freshman corner never turned for the ball, just put his arm out, and the ball hit his arm. Kirby was dying for pass interference, but no, he didn't turn and play the ball, but he didn't really touch the receiver as much as he just put his arm up.
Right.
And the ball hit him in the arm. But that's another one, right? You want to do about the dumb luck of sports? That ball is a foot higher. I mean, DB wasn't even looking. He just put his arm out, right?
Makes all the difference.
So that ball is a foot higher. It might be a touchdown. So, Carson Beck had some guy. There were some things, again, both teams will look at and go, we're happy, but we got to get better. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour next on the halftime show on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford Tyler had time for our Firehouse subtext of the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, man?
Yeah, so nameless texter weighs in and says, Juice transferred from a situation where he was the clear number one wideout, and now he's the third option while watching another player on his way to an All-American season.
Harris is really good.
Yeah.
He was the one thing that went right Saturday for Ole Miss.
Just about. They had 4 explosive pass plays. He was 3 of them. And then Juice got targeted a couple times, but no catches on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, you thought you put yourself in this much better position to show off what you got for the scouts. So far, you're not really getting a shot to do that consistently. So, and yeah, you clearly would have been the number one option here. But by the way, both teams are 3-1.
They're 4-1 because they've played every week so far.
That's
but
right.
yes,
Yeah.
2 teams on similar footing.
Two teams about 1 loss.
Hindsight's 2020, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I get him. You know, you look at it, Jackson Dart, established quarterback, Ole Miss, explosive offense. You get to go in there and do your thing, put up a bunch of numbers, go to the combine, up your draft stock. Right now,
and for Juice, and look, that's a big angle to this weekend's game. If he hadn't led people to believe that he was coming back, and then a week and a half later switch it up, because we talked about it after his tweet. Hey, I'm coming back. Like, this is great. Now you got wide receiver number 1 figured out, and then 10 days later he's gone. Like if it were just like a straight up, hey, I'm going to the portal, and then he ends up at Ole Miss, people would have been upset. I don't think quite as upset.
Remember when that tweet came out, he said, I'm coming back. We were on the air here, and we said he didn't say he was coming back to South Carolina.
We did put that caveat in there, but for the moment, it felt good. Felt good.
Sure.
And then it went the other way.
I think, again, how he did it. If you're going to leave, you come out and say, I am coming back to college football. I'm going to play another year, but I'm exploring my options or something, right?
Right.
You did make it seem like, even though you didn't put South Carolina in there and put your Gamecock stuff up and all that, when you say you're coming back, a lot of people in the fan base think, no brainer, you're coming back to South Carolina. You left the door open to come back if you could get whatever you were trying to get accomplished at South Carolina, I'm guessing in the NIL space. And that's just my guess. You kept the door open to get that done, but you also were cryptic enough to leave and then say, hey, I never told you I was coming back to South Carolina.
Right.
So I get it. I get why fans are salty. Then a couple of things he said once he left, I understand.
Yeah, that didn't help either.
I get it. All right, 803-404-6100. Thanks again for the Firehouse subtext of the hour. We appreciate it. Let's get Hank in here real quick. Hold on, Hank. You're on the game. Thanks for calling. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, fellas. I wanted to call. I had a perspective on that Georgia game. From Georgia perspective, the thing is Alabama and Georgia both have had elite talents. They've been 1 and 2 in recruiting for the last 5 or 6 years. So you know they had elite talent. For Georgia, that first half, a little more, and the commentator saying that the stuff that Alabama was doing on defense, they had not shown in any of their first 3 or 4 games. And it was totally a different concept from what Saban used to do and the way he used to do his defense. All of the pressures that they would bring, stuff. And so, to me, it just looked like Georgia was dumbstruck. Now, as to their credit, once Georgia got that time, they made those adjustments, and they came back, and then it became very different because you were seeing they were seeing a team with Alabama talent, but totally different from Alabama tendencies. So it would be interesting, I think, when you see that game again, knowing now that they've shown all that, because the commentator, Hershey, or whoever was calling, kept on saying, this Alabama hadn't shown, this Alabama hadn't shown, and the defense coordinator is really showing some stuff that's befuddling Georgia. If they got settled, it looked like old Alabama, Georgia. I would look to see both of those teams late in the playoffs.
Oh, same here, Hank. Thank you very much, my man. Appreciate you. We talked about this earlier in the hour. Alabama in the first half was blitzing from everywhere. If you look at the interception that Beck threw, Alabama brought the house. They had the DBs up in press coverage. The Georgia wide receiver and Beck totally miscommunicated. It was sort of like, it looked like a little kind of a bubble screen or some kind of screen. Receiver didn't turn around. Beck was in massive trouble. Defensive backs were up in press with heat. Ended up being an interception. Second half, you saw a lot of four-man rush dropping 7 by Alabama. They kind of changed it up, but Georgia, again, also did a lot of adjusting. So I have a feeling both of these squads will be in the college football playoff before it's all said and done. So
we'll see.
We'll see. Our Firehouse sub text the hour. We appreciate that. We got a little poll question on Twitter X we'll get to next as we go football in the 1 o'clock hour on the halftime show, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. It's coming up on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We've talked a ton about Georgia, Bama, obviously, and Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. Lost that very few people saw coming.
I feel like every week of this season so far, we've had one pretty significant surprise. And I was definitely the one this week. I don't know. This season kind of has that, chaoticness to it. We're only a month in, but, I feel like we could see some crazy stuff as we get closer to the end of the regular season. And now with an expanded playoff, who knows what could happen in the first round.
Well, the last time Kentucky beat a top 10 team on the road was 1977.
Been a while. That was the year before Stoops got there, right?
Yeah. Stoops is only 50.
By the way, because Stoops, he's in the top 5 or so of longest tenured head coaches at their specific schools in college football.
Yeah, he's got to be. He's been at Kentucky for a long time. Remember, he was close to getting fired before he finally got the thing turned around.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think anybody has, skirted under the radar more than he has.
Oh, yeah.
Because, how you look at that, Ferentz at Iowa, they've been to Big Ten championship games, big bowl games. Utah, it's been to the Rose Bowl. Obviously, Dabo's done what he's done. But, Mark Stoops has just lived that, 7 to 8 win existence. They'll have that 9-10 win year every couple years.
He's had 2 10-win seasons,
which is good. They've had plenty of good talent that's come there and gone to the NFL. But for the most part, he's just that coach that you don't. And we think about it more because of the SEC. But most people probably don't pay too much attention to that. Just keeps going.
6-win Stoops, 6-7 wins. He's had 1 8-win season, 2 10-win seasons, and that's everything else is 6-7 wins every year, mid-level bowl games. But here's what it is, and I truly believe this now, I think. If you're just looking for longevity and to keep cashing checks, right, and to build your retirement fund, to be the head coach of the opposite at a university, you're the football coach at a basketball school. You're the basketball coach at a football school. And if you're just good enough, you can go for a long time. And you can't stink. You can't go 3-9 or 4-8 or 2-10. You got if you can stay in that 6 to 7 win wheelhouse at a basketball school as a football coach. Go to low-level bowl games, 3 out of every 4 years, 3 out of every 5 years, something like that. And the years you don't go, you won 5 and, whatever. Mm-hmm. As long as you don't bottom out, and if you stay mediocre, and every now and then you have a season, wow, didn't expect that, you could stay for a long time. Think about it for a minute.
Well, and that's what makes this such a big win. Again, it's the biggest win of the Stoops era because they're not a team that routinely should be competitive against these type of teams. And again, they took Georgia to limit 2 weeks ago. And it's okay, that's Lexington. Georgia struggled in Lexington under Kirby Smart for whatever reason. But going on the road to Oxford, that's different.
That was a win. Remember, all right, after the South Carolina debacle, and Stoops just looked like and sounded like he just walked out of a train wreck.
They're talking about his buyout. All right, what we got to do to get this clown out of here?
This guy can't win a big game to save his life. Then you lose to Georgia. I mean, you play well enough to lose, right? But you've lost your first 2 SEC games. And now you got to go on the road to the Grove. A team that is beating people by the score of 110 million to nothing, right?
Yep.
That's where you're at now. So if you would have went in there and got boat raced, like most people thought you were going to, now you're 0-3 in the SEC. And now they're talking about, well, you couldn't wait to go to A&M. Really? Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't want you here either. And the A&M people are going, phew. So if Stoops loses that game by about 3 scores on Saturday, I don't know. But now he's getting all the love as a genius.
I want to give him credit because he learned from what he did wrong in the Georgia game, where they punted at midfield with about 3 minutes left, never saw the ball again. Georgia walks out with the win, where if they go for it, maybe they get a field goal and win that game 15-13.
Yep.
And he was criticized, rightfully so, for making that decision. So you're on your own 20. 4th and 7. Your chances of success were probably very low at that point, but I respect him going for it because you didn't make the right decision 2 weeks ago. Went for it. Berrien Brown makes the reception. Obviously, they drive down, get the touchdown there with Wimsatt fumbling it into the tight end's hands. But
practice that play a lot.
It all goes back to making that gutsy call on fourth down.
We talk about this. You've got to be aggressive.
And your defense was playing well.
Yeah.
So there was reason to believe they could have held them off.
But here's the thing. You're also playing college football in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You're going up against a very explosive offense that you have held in check so far. And like you said, you gave the ball back to Georgia. You never saw the football again. Screw it. You shouldn't be where you're at in this football game anyway.
Yes. I love when underdog teams just say, let's throw the kitchen sink at it. Forget the tie. We're going for 2. That kind of mindset.
Well, we talk about this all the time. Defensive coaches are so much more conservative in their game management. They're always playing to their defense. They're always scared out of their mind to put their defense in a bad position.
Right.
And I'll go back. We talked about this in the Oklahoma-Tennessee game a couple weeks ago. Game's still tight. Oklahoma has a 4th and 1 deep in Tennessee territory. What does Venables do? Kicks a field goal.
Kicks field goal, sorry.
That tells your team you had no faith in them to get 1 yard against Tennessee.
Yep.
You got to go for it. You're not going to kick field goals and beat the Volunteers. You're just not going to do it. You got to score touchdowns. That was a win for the Tennessee defense, a win for Tennessee sideline, and a win for Tennessee psyche. But Venables is an old-school defensive coordinator. And in his heart, he's going to kick the field goal and go play defense. He thinks the strength of his team is his defense, which he's correct. But again, let's go back to the point. You're not going to kick field goals and beat high-powered offenses in today's college football. Stoops, in the Georgia game, played conservative, played to his defense, never got the ball back. Saturday, 4th and 7, deep in your own territory, knowing that you couldn't stop Georgia's offense, so your thought process is, I'm probably not going to stop Ole Miss's offense either. I'm rolling the dice. I'm in this game anyway. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
It was so un-Stoops-like.
Yeah.
So un-Stoops-like.
And I think if they don't convert that, and let's say Ole Miss gets the ball at that short field and that's it, I think you at least win some respect from your fan base. Like, you know what? He went for it.
You know what? Your locker room backs you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that nobody on that offense was looking at Stoops going, what, are you crazy?
Yeah, no, we don't want to do this. Like, no, your quarterback was having his best game of his career up to that point. You have talent on the outside with Brown and Key. Like, let's just go make a play.
And they did. I liked it. And I think you've just got to be aggressive today at times. You just do. You can't play like it's 1978. You just can't. When Stoops first took over the Kentucky job.
Right.
You've got to go out there and play. You've got to be aggressive and understand that the team across from you is very explosive on offense, and to your credit, you've held them in check so far. But now you give them the ball and the lead, forget it. I'm going for it. I'm going down with the ship right here.
Yeah.
And honestly, if Kentucky wouldn't have made it, I'd sit here, not that we matter, but I would sit here and totally back Stoops for the decision, even if they didn't make it.
You were not expected to be in this position. Go for it.
You got to.
Throw whatever you have out there and see what sticks. Sometimes it happens.
And in today's football, especially in college, where these games are crazy all the time, and the really good offenses score 30 points on really good defenses, you got to go. That was a point where that game situation screamed it's time to go. We got to go here.
Right.
And to their credit, they made it. They went down the field. They scored the touchdown. And Ole Miss is still trying to figure out what happened. Now, the other part of the Ole Miss game this Saturday at Williams-Brice, as we talked about in the first hour, the angles of Ole Miss losing, maybe Ole Miss is now stunned. Maybe they're kind of shell-shocked. Maybe there'll be a hangover coming off of this. Because no one thought they would lose. Hell, if you'd have gotten Mark Stoops a couple of Guinness, got him a little lubed up, so to speak, he might have looked at him and said, "Coach, think you're going to beat Ole Miss on Saturday? What? You're crazy?
Yeah.
Of course not. We're going to beat Ole Miss. Give me another Guinness." not many people gave Kentucky a chance. So if you're Ole Miss and something stunning happens to you, I mean, Lane Kiffin said the right stuff post-game, right? He did.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. It's one loss. We're in good shape. We're fine. We're still the same football team we were before the game. We're going to be okay. That's the right message, but here's the deal. How are your players feeling right now? Are they stunned that they lost that game? They walked on that field like, we got this. It's Kentucky. They don't win these kind of games. They're not playing, the Akron School of Auto Repair. They're playing Ole Miss, baby. Top 10 Ole Miss. And they got it taken to them. So sometimes you get shell shock like that and you don't recover, or you don't recover for a couple of weeks. So we'll see. But it makes things, it doesn't make the matchup as sexy, undefeated Ole Miss coming in, but it does make it a little bit more interesting because now vulnerable Ole Miss is coming in.
Yeah, you've seen, again, that blueprint of, okay, here's how you beat them. Can you replicate that? And there's a lot of things that Kentucky did well in that game that we feel like South Carolina can exploit as well.
And by the way, let's get this cut 5, Tyler. Speaking of Kentucky, here's Mark Stoops, a man who typically, honestly, let's be real. The football shows more emotion at times than Mark Stoops. Here's Mark Stoops, very emotional after the W.
It means a lot because, we started tough. We have a brutal schedule, and our guys just keep on fighting, keep on coming back. We took the number 1 down to the wire, and that's no fluke. But yet, we have so much work to do. We know that. We know who we are, but I love these kids. They're coaches. Coaches done a remarkable job.
He does sound, you hear the voice.
Yeah, he's quivering a little bit there.
He's quivering. That's cool. Good. Look, we talk about Mark Stoops here all the time. He's 20 games under 500 in the SEC in his career. He landed kind of like the coaching lottery ticket at Kentucky. But that was a good win for Stoops.
Yeah.
He'll buy him another 3-year contract extension?
It might. That's one you can reference for a while. Hey, remember beating number 6 Ole Miss, especially if Ole Miss ends up still being the team that we think they're going to be, and potentially in the college ball playoff. You can hang your hat on that. But, no, I mean, credit where it's due. Stoops had a good game plan. Team came ready to play, and look, the best they've looked the entire season.
Oh, absolutely. And, I love, he does, and he talks, and for Kentucky, this is a brutal schedule. For Kentucky. Typically, they open up, they had Southern Miss to open up. That's usual. That's a usual Kentucky opener. They smacked Southern Miss. Then they had South Carolina and Georgia back-to-back, and then Ohio. Usually it's Southern Miss, Ohio, the University of Northwest Toronto, the College of the Archdiocese. And so, this is a lot tougher schedule than Kentucky's used to.
And I think you look at it, though, with this win this past weekend, that path to at least getting to 6 or 7 wins, it's there.
Okay.
Vandy, Florida, Auburn, Murray State.
What they have coming up, the Vanderbilt, Florida, Auburn, 2 out of the 3 are at Kroger. Kentucky can get their 6. And they got Murray State before it's all said and done. So they should be able to pull their 6, and Stoops can go to the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, and life will be good.
And who knows? Maybe they upset somebody else for all we know.
Could be.
We'll see.
We'll hear from Lane Kiffin, his side of this whole thing next. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We've been talking a ton about the two big games from an SEC perspective over on Saturday, the Georgia-Bama game, and also Ole Miss losing to Kentucky at home. First time since 1977, man. Kentucky has beaten a top 10 team on the road. Unreal. I mean, honestly, not unreal.
Well,
It's not like you go like this, wow.
Yeah.
Shocking. No.
Well,
but
and let's give more credit to Mark Stoops here, because in recent years they've broken a couple of significant trends that weren't good for them. Florida beat them for 30 years straight, and they finally broke that.
We've got them a couple times lately, Florida.
Got them a couple times, and they've now done this. Like, I don't know, maybe they're trending in a positive direction after 12 years.
Yeah, we'll see. But good win for Stoops on Saturday. Lane Kiffin after the game. Let's get cut 6, Tyler. Talking about, and it's really true, especially this year, you got to put teams away. You just can't let teams hang around.
All three phases had chances to win the game, or at least tie the game, and didn't do it. So commend them on a big win for them. But, very, very discouraging, disappointing. A game that could have went our way so many different ways, and we didn't close them out, when we have the ball up by a score and not make it come down to a play. And you can't let people hang around, because things happen, and people throw a go route on 4th and 7 and catch it. So you don't want to get to that point. You want to finish them out before that, when we have the ball and have the lead. So you can't let people hang around, especially in this conference.
Oh, absolutely. Or in college football today. You just can't. I mean, teams just go on runs. Teams hang around. Teams will make plays. Kentucky, we have fun with Kentucky, but they've got talent on offense. They've got wide receivers who are going to get the opportunity to play in the NFL. They just are.
You have to kill the belief of the other team. Because when you're as talented as Kentucky is, if you've got a chance in a game, you've got momentum. You know what I mean? Because, again, nobody picked you, and you maybe even doubted yourself a little bit. But if you're in a one-score game with a top 10 team, as they've done a couple times in a row now, you're like, we can do this. As opposed to, hey, Ole Miss is up 31-3 at halftime. All right, game's over.
You got to make it a 2-score game, because Kentucky's not going to outscore you. If you get that thing in the 30s, Kentucky's not getting there.
Yeah.
You got to, when you got your chance to make those plays, if you're Ole Miss, you got to make your plays. And if you can get a couple-score lead on Kentucky,
Yeah.
that changes your dynamic. I mean, you're up, 17-13, right?
Yes.
And you had opportunities to stretch your lead, and you just couldn't get it done. You had opportunities to get stops, and you couldn't get it done. Kentucky had to score a touchdown to beat you.
Yeah.
With that defensive talent Ole Miss has, and seeing how Brock Vandagriff ran for his life against South Carolina, I was a little surprised that Ole Miss didn't make Vandagriff's life more miserable.
Then they got to him, I want to say 4 or 5 times in the game.
Yeah,
so
he put up some really good numbers, man.
Yeah.
He really did.
He stood back there, withstood the pressure, and, again, had his best game to date in college to where I don't think people are – because after 2 weeks, we were like, oh, well, maybe this guy just isn't good. Because he did 3 completions against South Carolina for nothing.
I mean, you remember Sam Darnold saw ghosts?
Yeah.
Brock Vandagriff was seeing ghosts on that Saturday.
And that, as far as going into this weekend, Sellers going into what will be only his 4th career start because he missed the Akron game. Like, okay, can he have a breakout performance against this defense too? We hope so.
Well, think about this for a minute. I mean, Ole Miss did at times get after Vandagriff. So you have to think, okay, South Carolina's offensive line, South Carolina's pass protection. How's that going to hold up against a pass rush like this? And 2, does that mean you put a premium on in this football game? And again, you got to throw it. You can't play like Michigan. I mean, that's not good. We all know that's got a short shelf life.
It's winning for now.
Yeah, the key words there are for now. Once you're not going to win big games against really good teams doing this. Your quarterback, you can't be scared of your quarterback to throw the football.
Yeah, this is 1920.
Exactly. Red Grange isn't in the backfield with Bronco Nagurski. With Ole Miss, maybe it's as simple as your game plan. As you do you are going to throw the ball some, but maybe your game plan is to see, can you punch him in the mouth? Can Rocket Sanders and Lenore Sellers have a big day running the football? Can you move the ball in a physical manner on the ground against this football team? and kind of suck the energy and will out of them like Kentucky. Kentucky didn't run it they didn't run it for a ton. Matter of fact, they threw it for more than they ran it. And Vandegrift, threw for 250, 260, if my memory serves me. So, but if you're South Carolina, can you get physical with Ole Miss and run the ball right at them? Because you know what pass rushers don't like to do? Can't stand playing the run. They want to chase your quarterback, and they want to do sack dances.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to be sitting there dealing with offensive linemen firing off the ball in the run game.
Yeah, I run at you. You don't run at me.
Exactly. And South Carolina wants to run the football this year. So is that your formula? Just get physical, run right at the pass rushers, make them miserable, and hopefully that can be your MO for the football game. We'll see. But Ole Miss did give you the game plan is there to find it after the loss to Kentucky. Just saying that. Also, football in the 1 o'clock hour. One of the most bizarre, goofy, weird endings ever happened on Friday night between Virginia Tech and Miami. We're going to get to that coming up because that thing, there's so many things wrong with the end of that game.
And Miami almost did the thing we said that they might do this year.
I was laughing when I saw that score. I'm like, wow, we're right like 3 times a year. We might actually have something right here. So we'll get to that next. And Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest is back. Southern Cal scores a special teams touchdown. Southern Cal. Where am I? Where's my mind? Wow, I was thinking about the Southern Cal game against Wisconsin. I want to talk about it. If South Carolina scores a special teams touchdown, somebody's going to pocket $500 because the pool is up to $500. Just go to 1075thegame.com. Wait for the flippy thingy to go to Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. Click on it. Fill out the little form. Submit it. Boom, and you're in. And if a special teams touchdown is scored on Monday morning at 7:30, the early game will draw the winner. Well, Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest is back. Again, go to 1075thegame.com to register. Up next, the ending, the Hail Mary that wasn't, and Coral Gables with Virginia Tech and Miami. We'll get to that next. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. What we're talking about in the 1 o'clock hour, like always, is football, football, football. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, focusing on college right now. We'll get to the NFL. Oh, we'll get to the NFL.
Wait, I think Derrick Henry just ran for another touchdown.
He's pulling Buffalo Bills out of his cleats.
I saw somebody earlier say tackling him, which his nickname's the Tractor, but tackling him's got to be like trying to square up on an F-250. And I'm like, that's kind of disrespectful to Derrick Henry. I think he's tougher than an F-250.
I got my choice. I might go square up on the F-250.
I would.
I mean, Mike Golick, I was listening to Game Drive last night. Mike Golick had a great point because I forget who was doing the game with him. But asked him, he said, about tackling like Christian Okoye back in the day. Because like the Derrick Henry version back in Mike Golick's day was Christian Okoye. Or a back like that. And Golick said it's easier for the defensive linemen because those backs haven't picked up a head of steam yet.
Yeah.
The dudes that are in trouble are the DBs.
Yeah, safeties and stuff. Like, all right, now catch him going, 23 miles an hour?
He's going over 20 miles an hour, and he's running at you with anger.
He knocked out that one Bills DB with his knee.
How about the stiff arm to the Cowboy defensive back?
That's something I always heard back in the day about like guys that would try and tackle Herschel Walker. Is like you square up on him, you're going to get face full of knees.
Yeah,
because he's just churning at you. And that's the same thing with Derrick Henry. Like, all right, and he runs straight up. There's no like, and they did a good comparison with him and Eric Dickerson last night on TV, which I thought was pretty neat. Like he's straight up, like he's not crouched down. Like no, you're going to have to take him down at his knees, and good luck with that.
Well, the interesting part is they teach you to, as a running back, to run with lean, not to run straight up, because you give your whole body's now open shot for the defenders. They want you to run with lean. And Derrick Henry's like, have you seen me? I don't need no stinking lean, boss. I'm good. I want them to try to hit me.
And the coaches say, yes, sir, and allow him to do what he wants to do.
You know, he got the game ball in the locker room last night, and they showed it on ESPN. And he's like, this is why I came here. This is why I came to this organization. Yeah. To win games like this and to run for 199 yards and to step on the faces of linebackers and defensive backs. But he's kind of been rejuvenated too.
Oh, yeah.
Because now he's in the backfield with Lamar Jackson. Offensive line did a nice job last night for him. But remember, he was, even though his numbers are still good with the Titans, his secondary numbers are starting to go down. Your thought was, well, he's getting older and he's been hit a lot.
Everybody thought, okay, because look, the shelf life of a running back in the NFL is very short anyway. And
even that guy.
He's even as those numbers starting to dip, he was still better than most backs in the league. It's like, all right, getting towards the end, and I don't know if the idea of him going to Baltimore has used him in maybe not the as heavy of a role, but clearly he's still the same guy and has a better offensive line, the whole 9 yards, and it seems like his rookie year all over again.
And he's got Lamar Jackson back there with him. Now look, Ryan Tannehill was mobile.
Ryan Tannehill
is no like Lamar Jackson. It's like that's not happening. And so now you've got a quarterback back there with you that's as a weapon, and the Ravens are doing. And they're adjusting to their credit because Lamar does a lot of shotgun typically. Now they put Lamar behind center because Derrick Henry has played in offenses where the quarterback's behind center.
Yeah.
And they say, people who know running back play, that it's better for a running back to play in a run game system where the quarterback's under center than in the pistol. And Henry's used to being in more of a traditional setup. So the Ravens are putting more of that traditional setup in to help Derrick Henry. In the last 2 weeks, it's worked out pretty well because dude's going for almost 360 in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So we'll get more to the NFL. Oh, by the way, another bill got run over. We'll talk some stuff from the National Football League. And, we talk about the NFL. It is truly a week-to-week league.
Oh, yeah.
Truly.
No, the difference between the top and the bottom, while it may seem like a lot, it's not.
It's not. And, we're now seeing that in college football. It's becoming a week-to-week league.
Well, the
week-to-week world.
The talent is everywhere now.
And that's the thing. The transfer portal has made it so more even across the country. It's becoming, except for the top of the top of the top and the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, it's becoming a week-to-week game, college football. We've seen it. Again, South Carolina embarrasses Kentucky. Kentucky then goes toe-to-toe with Georgia, and Kentucky beats Ole Miss in Oxford. These things happen. Alabama can't move the ball to save their life. Well, they moved the ball and then kept fumbling it against South Florida. They went out and dissected arguably the best defense in America for 30 points in the first half, or 28 because the safety doesn't.
Yeah.
So 28 in the first half. I mean, we see this stuff the way college football has become, where it is trending toward the NFL, where, you know, a really, really good team could play their C effort and win. Maybe not now. Miami's a great example of this. Virginia Tech had been underachieving all year. Then they played Miami at Miami. Miami had to claw their way back to take the lead. You figure, okay, it's over. Virginia Tech's got to throw the Hail Mary. Okay, unless you're Baylor, usually you knock this thing down. Well, guess what? Didn't quite go that way. Hit it.
Comes down to this. Drones lets it fly. They're sorting through the carnage. Miami has it. Well, Virginia Tech has it. How do you like that? Virginia Tech, they roll it a touchdown.
The ruling on the field is reversed. It's an incomplete pass. The game is over.
Okay, so there's so much here. Obviously, the ACC called and said we want Miami in the college football playoff now. Obviously, there's a couple. The biggest takeaway for me is how clunky the whole thing was handled.
Yeah. It took 5 minutes after the play ended to get the initial call.
Yeah, I mean, it was just everything was very clunky in the execution of this call. I don't think it was a touchdown. But here's the problem. You hear the word I put in there? Think.
Yeah.
I don't know. So if you call it a touchdown on the field,
I don't know if you had enough to overturn it.
that's my point.
Which was the big point of contention here, because we've seen you have to have crystal clear evidence of the contrary, usually to overturn things. And I don't think there was enough there to do that. Now, again, if you call it incomplete on the field and review it and say, I don't have enough to say it's touchdown, that's fine. But like saying it's a touchdown, then saying, well, now we know it's not a touchdown, do you?
I just think the call on the field, whatever it would have been, had to stand because of the lack of concrete evidence to reverse. Now, the ACC said after the game, their statement was that the Miami player had his hand on the ball when the Virginia Tech player was going out of bounds, so there wasn't control or whatever the case they said in their statement. Okay, so if that's true, okay, let's say you saw that. Why didn't you relay that to the official to say that on the field?
Yeah, he just said it's been overturned. Passing complete, game's over.
I mean, the one thing the NFL does that I like at times is they will clearly state when they overturn a call or they don't overturn a call. They'll give explanation at times. If they overturn something, usually they give you some type of explanation. You need an explanation right there. You couldn't just say, I decided to overturn it. Beer's at my place.
Yeah.
No, you've got to explain, hey, here's what happened. Here's why we're overturning the call.
I think because it was like 2 or 3 of the officials that convened on that massive body to the back of the end zone. I think they're both thinking the same thing. Oh, bleep, what do we do here?
Ready? Did you see it?
No.
I got nothing.
Do you remember
Me either.
Remember the touchdown reception with the Seahawks and the Packers that time?
Yes.
Same kind of thing.
Everybody, whenever they're staring at each other with that blank look.
Like, you make the call. No, you make the call.
Ready? Please tell me someone here saw what happened. Please, somebody. That's what it was like. It was like nobody really knew. So they were like, okay, let's rock, paper, scissors. Touchdown. Okay, we'll rock, paper. And we'll let them
see him get a coin out and flip it really quick. Heads is touchdown, tails incomplete.
Okay, touchdown, good. Let those goobers figure it out at the league office.
Yeah.
That's almost, it felt like that's what they did. They said, we're going to call it a touchdown and shoot it to the league office.
Sure.
And let them figure it out. It was just very clunky. The whole thing was clunky. And whenever you're that clunky, obviously the aluminum foil hat wearing people go crazy with their conspiracy theories on what just happened.
Right.
Because that's human nature. And yeah, I was hearing it. Oh, the ACC wants Miami in the college football playoff. There's no way they're going to let them lose this game. Okay. All right. But it was just, the ending was bizarre. Miami almost crystal-balled.
What did we say on Friday?
Almost crystal-balled. Yes.
We looked at their schedule and said, this is manageable. You've got a very clear path, if nothing else, to the ACC championship game, save for one game against Louisville, who's still ranked. They almost blew it.
What was the one we said they're going to? That was we pointed to one late in the year because that's the one we said it typically is going to be a game that nobody thought they would lose.
I think it was the Georgia Tech game because
I
that
think
was
it was
on the
Georgia
road,
Tech.
and then
Yeah, it
you
was
had
Georgia
what happened
Tech.
last year, like that kind of thing. But I don't know what it is. But Cristobal coach teams always have a way of tripping up on teams they have no business being in a competitive game with.
And by the way, untripping yourself in this one doesn't mean you're not going to trip yourself later.
Yeah, no,
by the way.
that might just be saving for down the road.
Exactly.
Because again, the talent is clearly there for this
yeah.
team.
Virginia Tech's a talented team. Remember, they've underachieved so far this year because everybody thought they were a dark horse in the ACC.
Yeah, then you lose to Vanderbilt, and they're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, you're not much of a dark horse. And I think what's that now? Are they 2-3 now? I think Virginia Tech was that loss
I believe so.
because I thought they were at 500 going into the game. They've been underwhelming so far this year, but they're a talented squad. They had a bunch of people coming back. So for them to take Miami down to the wire doesn't surprise you. But again, we talked about on Friday with Mario Cristobal teams, they are going to lose one they have no business losing. And the good news is, though, you can still do that this year. And you're okay if that's the only one you lose.
Yeah.
You'll be all right.
By the way, they're 2-3. All three of those losses in one-score games.
Virginia Tech's a talented team. And don't be surprised at the end of the year if they've got like 8 wins.
By the way, their next game, they're going to Stanford this weekend. They went from South Beach to Palo Alto back-to-back weeks.
Makes sense in the ACC, right?
That's a lot. That might be one of the longest back-to-back weeks.
During the break, find out how far it is from Coral Gables to Palo Alto.
Okay.
Halftime show, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Time for our Firehouse sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100 on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. Firehouse Subtext the Hour on a Reaction Monday. We're reacting to some interesting games in the SEC. We've really been focusing on two. But we will get to some other stuff, too. We got a lot of football today, and we'll get it. We'll get it. A Reaction Monday is football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. 803-404-6100 is the Firehouse Subtext line. What is the text of the hour, sir?
All right, two from the same person here. Nameless texter says, Saban spoke to Lane on game day during the pregame and told him he looked too relaxed compared to when Saban was questioning every decision Lane made when he was on his staff. I think that threw off his mojo. Also, he says that that Southern Cal comment is a 15-yard and an ejection for you.
I know.
So,
I don't know. I was looking at the Wisconsin Southern Cal game in front of me on the scoreboard, and I just...
That is the hardest transition to make when working here is the USC thing. Because everywhere outside of this state, pretty much, USC is the Trojans.
It is. It's interesting because, and look, I get it. I understand that, here, if you look at everything, it's the original USC.
Yeah, I get it. That's fine.
And I also get the Carolina thing. I get it.
That too. I'm not as bad about that one.
Yeah. I got, it's funny, my first week here, the Carolina thing I got quick.
Yeah.
Because you get that one quick. The USC is the tough one to adjust to if you're not from South Carolina. Absolutely. But it took me about a week to get that one. I did that one a few times and found out, hey,
don't do that.
Yeah, this is USC. It's funny. I remember hearing of it before. Like, because there was a thing, because there's the real USC that gets thrown out.
Yep.
And so I've heard it before I got to Columbia, but I didn't realize the intensity of that until you mess it up a couple times.
It's a big deal. Hey, it's in Sandstorm and everything.
Absolutely. So, yes, you are correct. I was sitting here looking at the top 25 scoreboard because I wanted to get to that game at some point with Southern Cal because I have all these games on the thing in front of me, and I just...
Does that mean you're ejected for the first half of tomorrow's show as well?
Yeah, I am. Well,
targeting?
Because I'll take off now, and I'll be back at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
We're good. Anyway, thanks for the text on the Firehouse Subtext line, 803-404-6100. We appreciate it very much. All right. So, also in the SEC, we focus so much on the obvious two big games, one that really affects South Carolina, that there were some other goings-on in this conference on Saturday. An interesting one, Auburn. Want to talk about Auburn?
Let's do it.
Jeez. Oklahoma and Auburn. This was there for Auburn to win. It was there for you.
And for 55 minutes, they did about everything right.
And then guess what? Peyton Thorne had 3 touchdown passes.
Peyton Thorne had his best game as an Auburn Tiger
since Michigan State.
Considering the quality of opponent. Yeah, I don't care what he did against Alabama and A&M. Like, he had a really good game against a good defense in Oklahoma. It's just that one interception.
And at the worst possible time. The worst possible time. And Auburn gets beat by Oklahoma on the Plains 27-21. I mean, Thorne, these numbers, he threw for 338, 3 TDs, 21 to 32, 10.5 yards an attempt. I mean, everything was how you want it.
If you blindfolded me and asked me which SEC quarterback had that stat line this weekend, I probably would have guessed 15 other guys before him.
Not Peyton Thorne.
No.
Peyton Thorne didn't throw for 338 yards in a month, it felt like.
No.
And when you look at this whole thing, Auburn ran for 144, only 3.3 yards a carry, so they weren't productive, but they kept running. They ran it 43 times. They threw it 32. They had big plays in the passing game. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. They had 4 30-plus yard explosives in the passing game.
They outgained them.
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma, Michael Hawkins Jr. was okay as a starting quarterback, both throwing it and running it. But, Oklahoma didn't do a whole lot compared to what Auburn did statistically. But again, the turnover was a killer. The pick six was a killer. And Auburn loses again, now down to 2-3, 0-2 in conference. Oklahoma, again, you don't need a win because you were 3-1. I mean, you're going to go 3-2. But 4-1 with a road win in the SEC feels a heck of a lot good than 0-2, and you just rolled off 291 total yards.
And I guess for the time being, your quarterback controversy is resolved. I mean,
For this week,
Hawkins didn't light the world on
it's
fire,
okay.
but I mean, he did a serviceable job and
you know what he didn't do?
turned the ball over.
Exactly.
Now you got a bye week before the Red River Shootout, and I would fully expect him to be the starter in 2 weeks.
I think he is. I don't think Jackson Arnold gets. Hawkins is going to have to either be terrible for multiple games or just awful in a game they have to bring Arnold in,
Yep.
or Hawkins have to get hurt. I just don't think that. I think right now, I think Brent Venables, again, he's playing to his defense. Do I agree with all that? No, not in today's college football, but Venables is going to play to his defense and play the quarterback that's not going to kill him with turnovers. Make sense?
Yep.
All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Coming up next on the Halftime Show, Terry Ford and Tyler Hitt on the game. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Before we get back to the football, what's trending is a big doubleheader in Atlanta. Braves and Mets. Schwellenbach against McGill right now, 2-0 Atlanta. And again, we know this game will be going to the bullpen at some point soon. I mean, as good as Schwellenbach has pitched this year, he's not a guy. No one goes deep into games anymore, especially big games.
Sure.
So Atlanta's up 2-0. Ozzie Albies with the home run with a man on against Tyler McGill. And right now Atlanta up 2-0. Now, what's interesting, if you don't understand what's going on here, this doubleheader has to be played.
Yeah.
Because of the playoff implications. If the Diamondbacks would have cooperated over the weekend, just a whole different set of circumstances. But this doubleheader means everything.
Yes, everything is for the final 2 wild card spots on the NL side is coming down to today, where if you sweep either side, then that team and the Diamondbacks get in. If it's a split, both the Braves and the Mets go.
Which makes this so interesting that the Mets and the Braves, they don't particularly care for each other. So if you're like the Braves, you win game 1. Do you then say, we're in, play the bat boy? Or do you go, no, if we can win the next one, we can knock these jabronis out of the playoffs?
Ask Jay at the end of the hour if he's comfortable with just letting the Mets win one today. See what he says.
Oh, no. That's what I think is so interesting about this. If you're the Braves, do you take your foot off the gas if you win game 1 because now you're in the postseason? And you just focus on making sure no one gets hurt. Everybody's just sitting down enjoying themselves. Or do you go like this? If we win them both, those guys go home. It'll be interesting.
I go more with the former because if the Braves would have to go on the road to the Padres starting tomorrow, they don't get any reprieve. Like, that's going to be in and of itself a tough challenge. You got to have all hands on deck for that. As much as fun as it would be to knock the Mets out, if you can win this game, just coast through the second one. Mets can get in there. You may not even see them in the postseason, but you need to start focusing on the Padres.
If it's me, I care about me.
Yeah.
And caring about me means don't put any of your regulars on the field in game 2 that you don't have to play. You know, you've had enough injuries to last you a lifetime this year,
let
right?
the bat boy pitch. I don't care.
And let the bat boy pitch and catch. And who cares? Just do not put anyone out there that's vital to the cause for the postseason in game 2 if you win game 1.
They've had enough injuries this year already, so you don't need any more.
The baseball gods have decided this is the year they're gonna squat on you.
Yeah.
And so basically, and this would be human nature to sit there and go, there's no way I'm playing anybody in game 2 because if we play somebody in game 2, what's going to happen?
They're going to get hurt.
They're going to get hurt.
They're going to trip on a sunflower seed.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt. So me, if I'm the Braves and I win game 1, no one's playing in game 2. And plus, if I'm the Braves, we win game 1, we're going to go in real quick, spray champagne on each other, and maybe be too drunk to play game 2.
Yeah.
So
maybe if you, because there's 30, 45-minute spring games. You can call up Gwinnett right down the street. Just get all those guys up here.
Yeah.
Let them play. Wear Braves uniforms.
Who cares?
There you go.
Wow. It's really weird. Albies looks a lot different in game 2.
The cosplaying Braves.
That's me. I don't care about game 2 if I win game 1. And the same thing with the Mets. If I win game 1, I don't care about game 2.
You fold. Like, if I'm the Diamondbacks, I'm not feeling very confident watching these games today.
That's a bad scenario, but you're the Diamondbacks. You put yourself in this spot because you've scuffled and struggled and tripped over yourself the last week of the season.
Control your own destiny, and you're not in this spot.
And you didn't. You had business right in front of you. If you just would have played decent baseball at the end of the year, you're in.
Right.
You put yourself in this spot. To have to sit, chew on your fingernails and toenails, and hopefully one of these teams will sweep a doubleheader.
Yeah. You never want to be in a position cheering for another team.
I think they split and they both get in.
Probably.
That's just the way I feel about it.
The winner, you have no reason to try in the second game.
Not at all. Not at all.
In fact, go ahead and start packing your bags because you've got to hit a flight immediately.
Because that's the other part of this that you brought up is the idea you want to take game 2 off, whichever team wins, because you have to go out the West Coast.
Yeah.
And play the Padres.
After playing five 5 games in 4 days.
Yeah. So you put your feet up, whoever wins game one. Hopefully it'll be the Braves. They're up 2-0 again right now. Let's see. Schwellenbach's line is only giving up 1 hit in 3 innings, no walks, 3 strikeouts. And, of course, McGill gave up the 2-run homer to Ozzie Albies. So it's 2-0 Atlanta after 3. Braves, again, hold on, win this one, and you stumbled your way back into the postseason. Now, again, the whole thing is set up. Last year, if you had to buy, it wasn't a good thing because you got beat.
Which I'm still not a fan of that setup.
Everybody but the Astros lost in the bye round last year, if my memory serves me, because the Astros then got beat by the Rangers.
Right.
So the buys went 1-3 last year. And my thing on the buy really quick is just very simple. It takes you out of your rhythm. Baseball is a game where you're playing 6 days a week typically, right?
Right.
Now you're going to have a week off or close to it or whatever. You don't do that during the year unless the All-Star break. You don't do it.
And so that killing that momentum, it's a thing. It's real.
Your mojo is gone. And not to say every team with a bye loses, they don't, but it is a thing because you got to get yourself back together because you've sat on the sidelines.
And I remember the Braves last year because they were one of the teams that had the bye, whatever you want to call it, the couple days off. You know, they went in because we talked to Jeff Francoeur in the days leading up to it. You know, asked him what are they doing differently this year because it bit them the year before. He's like, well, they're simulating games at Truist Park. You can simulate games all you want. There's a difference between playing a real game and scrimmaging against your own team. And it came back to bite them.
Absolutely. And you looked at those teams last year. The Braves, the Dodgers, and the Orioles all went home in the first round. The Diamondbacks and the Rangers played in the World Series. Mm-hmm. The Rangers soiled themselves the last week of the season and screwed themselves up and almost fell out of the playoffs. And the Diamondbacks barely got themselves in. Were they the last team in, I believe?
I think so.
They're in the World Series. Just getting a tournament. That's all that matters now. Because this is just the Terry Ford theory. Because starting pitching has been devalued so much in baseball. And bullpens become such a thing in October. And by the way, you know what's very unpredictable and volatile? Bullpens.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at a year where your bullpen is money. And the next year, they can't get out people from the stands. Bullpens have no rhyme or reason. Consistency is always an issue.
Right.
Because a lot of guys in a bullpen are failed starters. Or they specialize in throwing a certain pitch or two. And okay, you could have a bad week. Everybody's got a bad week in baseball. Bullpens, it's great for 162 games, right?
Right.
But when you get into a short series and you don't have dominant starting pitching anymore, or you don't let your starting pitching go past 5 or 6 innings, and you're putting the game in the hands of a bullpen all the time, I think that's why everything's flipped. It used to be dominant starting pitching. You just knew, man. If you faced a staff, the Braves won 73 straight division titles, got to the World Series an ungodly amount on the back of what?
Their rotation.
No offense to Ron Gant, David Justice, Chipper Jones. The reason a lot of times the Braves lost in the postseason couldn't score.
Yeah, because you brought 3 Hall of Famers into town for each game.
I mean, starting pitching, look at when the Arizona Diamondbacks won it all, they did it on the back of Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling. Look what Madison Bumgarner did single-handedly, it felt like, for the Giants, him and Matt Cain. You don't have that anymore. Even the teams with dominant staffs, the starter's out in the 5th or 6th inning, and you hand over to the bullpen. It's just very unpredictable, especially when you get in the postseason. Some of those guys who slam the door every time for you, guess what they stop doing? Slamming the door.
That's right.
So just get in the tournament. If you're the Braves, yes, this thing has been a slog. But a few years ago, you won the World Series winning 88 games and losing your best player.
All you need is a chance.
Is get in. In the words of that great philosopher Lloyd Christmas,
tell me there's a chance.
That's baseball's postseason. So Braves 2-0 right now, leading the Mets, top of the 4th inning in Atlanta. Braves win, they're in. If they lose, they got to win the second game. And if they don't, if they get swept, then the Diamondbacks are in. All right, we will get back to talking about college football and the NFL. Let's focus on the NFL in our next segment, Tyler.
Okay.
Hey, Gamecock got a touchdown on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
It had a little fun.
A little bit.
We'll get into that coming up next and look at some of the big moments in the NFL from Sunday. What's trending at 2 here on the game, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. By the way, Shane's back tomorrow.
It's a normal week.
1 o'clock, Shane Beamer Presser. You can hear it right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. That again will be 1 o'clock with Shane. Also, Carolina Calls back again Thursday with Shane and Todd Ellis. That will be 6 o'clock from Backstreet. So Shane's back. We got Shane tomorrow at 1, meeting with the media, and then Shane at 6 on Carolina Calls. The Carolina Calls here in Columbia at 107.5 and our sister station in Myrtle Beach at 100.3 The Game. We'll get back in here. What is trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Touchdown Xavier. We'll yap about it next here on the halftime show on the game.
It's their second time out with the Pratt injury. Play action. Dalton rolling, throwing on the run. Touchdown! Xavier Legette into the end zone for the first time in his NFL career.
Not Xavier Legette.
Legette. No, he was so nice here, he never corrected us.
We just said Legette forever. Xavier Legette, 6 catches, 66 yards yesterday, including a touchdown grab. You heard it right there. 10 targets for Xavier.
He's coming along, and it helps that he has a more competent throw over the football now.
Mm-hmm. And so far for, let's see, Xavier, yesterday was the most targets he had gotten in a game with 10. He had 10 all year going into the game. So he doubled his targets, doubled his catches. He had 6 catches going into the game.
Right.
So far and away, his best game as a pro. Again, 6 grabs on 10 targets, 66 yards and a touchdown. Now, Carolina fell to Cincinnati 34-24. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, here is Xavier Legette. I'm going to get it right now. Talking about his touchdown dance after he caught the score.
I know you'd much rather have the win, but your first NFL touchdown. Can you walk us through that?
Oh, man, well, I've been telling them boy all week, if I get my first one, I'm going to ride dollar bill off the field. So that's what I did.
Okay, so that was dollar bill.
Yeah.
Okay,
Were you ready for it, or because you seemed excited and then you're like, oh, I got to ride dollar bill?
Oh, yeah, I was too excited. And I looked at Deontay, I see him riding it too, so he reminded me.
He cracks me up.
If you don't like Xavier Legette, we can't be friends.
What's a you problem, right?
Like, what has he done to you if you do not like this man?
Right. So good. So Xavier gets his first TD grab. Carolina, again, falling 34-24. Now, Andy Dalton, I mean, obviously really good last week in his first start. This week,
I think he was a little more motivated this week because of the Bengals thing.
Yeah, but 25 of 40, only threw for 220. It's 5.5 yards an attempt. That's not very good. Did have a pick. Did throw for 2 scores. It was 21-14 at the half, and the Bengals, inched their way to a 10-point win in the second half. Look, has the offense been better the last 2 weeks with the Red Rocket? Sure it has.
Yes.
I mean, but Chuba Hubbard ran for 104.
Wasn't a high bar to clear, if we're being honest.
Hubbard almost went 6 yards a pop. Carolina ran for 155 and over 5 yards a carry.
I'll give Carolina credit in one category. They did not allow a sack in this game.
Which is good.
Which is significant because they've been among the worst in the league the past couple of years.
And part of that, pass protection's better. Look, let's be honest here. Bryce Young, held the football a bit. Ran into some sacks, too. Look, the offensive line wasn't very good these last 2 years for Bryce Young.
Right.
But Bryce Young also had a hand in some of that stuff, and Andy Dalton's getting rid of the ball quicker, processing better. It's just helping out the offensive line.
And that's why this switch is so important. It's to allow Dave Canales and this team to get a sense of where they stand. And again, Andy Dalton's not somebody that you're going to ride to a 10-win season and a playoff run. Like, he's a veteran quarterback who's been around the block that can do a serviceable job and just show you where your average should kind of be with this offense, which, again, they've looked better these past couple weeks. Like, okay, here's the difference between where he's at and where Bryce Young is. Can we ever get Bryce Young up to this point, or is it a lost cause?
Well, you want Bryce Young to take a seat and watch from a different angle and a different perspective, and watch Andy Dalton prepare and watch Andy Dalton play the position and how Andy Dalton does not just the big things, but the little things. All this, Bryce Young has never, ever, ever, ever been benched in his life.
No.
Ever. Probably in Pop Warner football, he was the best player on his team.
The closest thing is coming in, I guess, after Mac Jones and having to sit behind him for
which
a year.
Was a natural progression of what you do.
That wasn't him losing the job. He's just, okay, it's not your turn yet.
Right. So Bryce Young has never gone through this. So we got to keep that in mind, too. Now, how does he react to never going through this? Now, so far, everybody's saying the right things. We'll see. But Bryce Young's got to come to grips with that. He has never failed. And I've always said this. People who never fail, it's always interesting to see what happens when they finally do, because you're going to fail at some point.
Of course.
You are never not going to fail. This is not a Disney movie. But usually in a Disney movie, you fail, you come back and you win a championship and you get the girl and all that other stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And every team in a Disney movie is coached by Emilio Estevez now. So how does Bryce Young react to failure? Some people makes them more determined, right? They get that grit going, I'll prove I can do this. And they bounce back and they'll be fine. Some people fail and it crushes them because they've never failed before.
Right.
And they don't know how to handle failure. And now all the doubt that they've never had before, right? Now the door of doubt has been opened. And all those demons that have never run through their head is starting to run through their head. How do you handle it? You get back up and keep going, or does it wipe you out? We'll see with Bryce Young. I feel like Bryce Young he seems even-keeled enough to where I think he'll be okay. I might be the last person left, but I don't think Bryce Young is a failure and a bust and all these other things yet. Not yet. I think he needs to sit back and watch and learn. Now, let's put it this way. If Sam Darnold can rehabilitate himself, if Baker Mayfield can rehabilitate himself, if Geno Bleepin Smith can rehabilitate himself.
Sam Darnold.
If all those guys can rehabilitate, why can't Bryce Young?
Yeah, it's not over for him. I think a lot of people would probably like to see him in a different situation to see how successful he can be. Because, again, the talent is there. There's a reason he won the Heisman Trophy. There's a reason he was the number 1 overall pick. He just may not be in a situation that suits him.
Right. And, look, it might be this happens sometimes as well. He just might be, he needs to go somewhere else at this point. Maybe he has no confidence in ownership or anybody in Carolina. Maybe he feels, I got to get the hell out of here. I can't be successful in this bleep show. I got to get out of here.
Before we move on, speaking of quarterbacks, I don't know. You said you were driving. You didn't catch the stray they threw at Josh Rosen on TV last night.
Oh no! Really?
Yeah. So of course that was the 2018 draft class. Yeah, 2018 draft class. And they did the comparison of all the quarterbacks taken, at least the highlight quarterbacks taken, which of course was Jackson and Allen and Darnold and Mayfield. And they had the graphic like Mayfield on his fourth team, Darnold on his fourth team, Allen second in total touchdowns since 2018, and Lamar Jackson 2-time MVP. And they have a picture of Josh Rosen, last played in the NFL in 2021, and I think he's in like business school now, and it has Wharton University of Pennsylvania Business School underneath his photo. If you're Josh Rosen, who I imagine probably still watches football, wanted to tune in, sees how some of your former colleagues were playing, and just catching a stray from NBC on Sunday night, like you didn't have to do the man that dirty.
Right. I mean, he knows.
Yeah, he
knows what's up. He gets up every day and doesn't go to the football complex. He knows what's up.
Man.
He's such an interesting case study. We talked about this. One day we were talking about how some teams they shy away from players who come from rich families.
Right.
Because they don't have that want to, like the kid that's trying to, coming up from the poor family or the tough situation in life, and he's got those scars and scabs and he's tough. The rich kid's never gone through adversity, right? Mm-hmm. And Josh Rosen's one of the dictionary definitions of this. There were teams that didn't want to draft him because, again, his family's well off. So they didn't think he had that mental toughness or that grind to him because he's never had to. Plus, he was a really good college quarterback.
Yeah, no, he was one of those guys, was probably the best athlete on the field through Pop Warner middle school, high school, and it was natural to him, and played the same kind of way when he was at UCLA. And then you get league, you're like, oh, bleep, these guys are really good. I got to step my game up, and he was never able to do that.
Or he didn't. Maybe we always get mean about this. Oh, you can't be that way. Well, maybe they were right about Josh Rosen. Maybe he didn't have that mental toughness and that inner to go out and get over what he couldn't do, or make himself. Try to get himself to the point of being that guy, where he bounced around with 3-4 different teams.
Well, and I think because he got drafted by the Cardinals, played 1 year there, they fired Steve Wilkes, then he goes to Miami. Like being in two places in the first 2 years of your career is not helpful. I will say that, but still, if he had something worth building around potential-wise, they would have found that between those two teams.
Well, didn't he go to San Francisco for a little bit? Didn't he
was
hang
in San
out with the
Francisco.
Whisperer?
He was back up in Atlanta, I think, at the very end of his career. So, and yeah, if Shanahan doesn't see something in you and, that gets around to the rest of the league, then I don't know what else you can do.
But it is interesting they took a shot at him last night.
Because I'm watching and I'm like, that seemed very cruel. Because it's like, okay, to say, Jackson Lamar and Allen, the two most successful guys from that draft class, and sure, you can reference Mayfield and Darnold, but you don't have to intentionally say, and Josh Rosen, who hasn't been in the league in 3 years and is now in business school or whatever.
Or you just go, it didn't work out for Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Hey, you just got to move. I get you.
What a loser he is, going to his 9-to-5 job every day.
Usually the TV broadcast doesn't do that. Usually it's the radio goofs like us that do that.
Does Rosen owe Tirico money or something?
I'm bummed I missed that now. It's interesting. Lamar Jackson, Ravens. Josh Allen, Bills. Baker Mayfield, Bucks. Sam Darnold, Vikings. Josh Rosen.
Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania.
PA. Oh, jeez.
Which, that's a high-end university.
And by the way, it's a very, very prestigious business school.
Yeah, for whatever his endeavors are with that, I'm sure he's going to be successful. But yeah, just catching it. Could you imagine being in class this morning? Like, hey, talked about you on the game last night.
Or you know what's funny? Let's say he never talked about anything. He's just in the business school and never talked about his past.
Aren't even aware of it.
And all of a sudden they're like, hey.
Yeah, like he shaved his beard. He's got a different haircut now. And maybe, I don't know, goes by like his middle name instead.
Right. He doesn't want to talk about the past.
Exactly.
It's too painful. And now it's out there for everybody.
Like, oh, you're Josh Rosen.
Oh, you're that guy.
Ugh.
All right, high school football, Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show with Justin Hall, Elijah Campbell, back its regular time this Friday, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Everything in high school football in the region. Also, we'll look at Myrtle Beach, Florence, everywhere. Let you know what's going on with the scores, the stories. We'll have coaches calling in after games. We'll have media members also ringing in, giving their thoughts on what's going on Friday night. We'll have a special game of the week, all sorts of cool stuff. It's a Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show with Justin and Elijah, and you can hear that 7 to 11 this Friday right here on the game. It's last day of September 30th.
Just go wake up that Green Day guy tomorrow.
Greatest day in the history of the world. Coming up next here on the game. Oh, greatest day in the history of the world, September 30th. All right, we go old school.
How far back?
1916. Not bad. The Boston Braves, on this day in 1916, beat the New York Giants baseball team 8-3 in the second game of a doubleheader. It was like, who cares? Well, that snaps the Giants' 26-game winning streak. You're like, wow, Giants must have been really good that year if they won 26 in a row, right?
Sure.
Finished fourth in the National League.
Well, they got
86 and 66.
They got hot at the end of the season.
Yeah, their winning streak went from September 7th to September 30th. Think about how bad they were before. All right, so let's back up 26 games.
Yep.
They were, let's just say, they were 60 and 66, and then won the last 26 games of the season. Roughly. How about that? That's it. I mean, they were just...
It's closing strong.
But it was too much. They still finished 7 games out of first place. You know who finished first that year?
No clue.
Okay, the Braves, who beat them to snap that 26-game win streak, was third with 89 wins, 4 games back. The Philadelphia Phillies finished second with 91 wins, 2.5 games back of the great Brooklyn Robins.
Legendary
You remember the Brooklyn
team.
Robins, right?
Oh, of course.
Who doesn't remember the Brooklyn Robins? Yeah. Ask me who the Brooklyn Robins were.
Who were the Brooklyn Robins?
They became the Brooklyn Dodgers.
When did they decide on Dodgers?
I don't know. They were the Robins in 1916. By the way, the owners, we've heard of the great Ebbets Field in Brooklyn, right?
Uh-huh.
You know why it was named Ebbets Field?
Guessing the owner of the team?
The owner of the team was Charles. They had Charles Ebbets was the owner, along with Ed McKeever and Stephen McKeever. The president of the team was Charles Ebbets. So he said, you know what? I own it. I'm the president. We're going to name the field after me.
Hold on, I'm trying to figure out why they're called the Dodgers now.
And we started a rabbit hole, haven't we?
We have.
Yes, we have.
I'll let you know in a second.
I'm searching for the Brooklyn Robins. Here you go. Well, they became the Brooklyn Dodgers. Yep. 1931 was the last year they were the Brooklyn Robins, according to something in front of me here.
So, according to MLB.com, the name originated in 1896 as the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers. Heavy construction of the electric trolley tracks in front of the Eastern Park caused fans to dodge the trolleys to reach the park. Those fans became known as the Trolley Dodgers, and the team took the name, which was shortened to Dodgers.
So, dodging trolleys.
There you go.
Probably didn't end well if you were a little, you mistimed your dodge.
Yeah.
Probably didn't work out well for you.
I don't know how many people lived if they didn't avoid the trains. Kind of a matter of life. The standards of safety around professional sporting events has improved quite a bit since then. So, all right, we're going to go the Robins game if we don't die by the trolleys getting there.
Well, here's the thing. There were so many trolley dodgers, you end up naming the team after them.
It's pretty significant.
Think about that for a minute. It's crazy. And one last old school one, 1927, Babe Ruth hits his 60th home run of the season in 1927 in the 8th inning. Now, I believe that's the year Babe Ruth had more home runs himself than I think every team in the American League had as a team.
All on beer and hot dogs.
Yep. The beer hot dog diet. That was the Babe. Well, that movie with John Goodman was so painful. Did you ever see that movie? It's awful.
I have not. I've never heard anything about it being good,
terrible.
So I've never gone out of my way to watch
And
it.
I love John Goodman. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I love John Goodman.
Which, I mean, he looks kind of like Babe, I guess.
Yeah. Didn't swing a bat very well in the movie. Look, John Goodman in Big Lebowski, thumbs up.
Oh, totally.
John Goodman in Raising Arizona, thumbs up.
The
John
Hangover?
Goodman in Babe Ruth, doom. Yeah,
No.
John Goodman in Hangover, yes.
Can't win them all.
No, you can't. All right. Also, this day, the greatest day in the history of the world. Ryder Cup is won by Europe, 17.5 to 10.5. Brittany Griner scored 15 points. United States beat Australia in the Women's World Cup of basketball. Interesting. 2017 on this day, Troy forces 4 turnovers, and they upset number 25 LSU.
I remember this.
Troy is the first team outside of the Southeastern Conference to win in Death Valley since UAB in 2000.
And that was 2 years into Orgeron's run there. So there's a lot of question. Is this really the right guy for the job? And we didn't know the greatest offensive roster in college football history would be on campus 2 years later.
And Ed got his national championship and his money, and then just kind of decided,
he's just chilling.
This day in 2012, New England beats Buffalo 52-28, become the first team since 1950 New York Giants to score at least 45 second-half points in a game, which it trailed at halftime.
Against the Giants? Is that what you said?
No, the Bills.
Oh, sorry.
New England, they beat
I was
the
like,
Bills.
they did it against the Giants. That was revenge for the Super Bowl earlier that year.
There you go. Hey, get that trophy back.
Hey, remember when the Bills weren't good for like 20 years? Boy, times have changed.
Yes, they have. 2007, some guy named Brett Favre passed some guy named Dan Marino to become the NFL career leader in touchdown passes. 422. That's the one Brett Favre threw in that day to pass Dan Marino.
Wait, 2007. I'm going to guess Donald Driver.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. That makes sense. A little Donald Driver action.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a good guess by you. And finally, no, two more quick ones. This day, 1995, Prairie View A&M sets a college football record for consecutive losses with a 64-0 loss to Grambling. I had Prairie View in 65, by the way. That was the money line.
We didn't put too much on it.
It was the team's 51st straight defeat in NCAA record at any level. 51 straight L's. And finally, 1992, one of my favorite players ever, George Brett, becomes the 18th player to record 3,000 hits. Brett got his 3,000th hit in a 4-0 win over the then California Angels in 1992.
Correction, it was actually Greg Jennings.
Well, you did okay there because
I just threw one out there.
That was a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, another 3,000th hit, Roberto Clemente on this day in 1972. Got his 3,000th hit. Now, again, Clemente got that 3,000th hit, and then the offseason went to take, supplies because there was I think it was an earthquake. And he was on a plane that crashed and he died taking supplies to, was it the Dominican? Puerto, I forget where it was, but he was taking supplies on a plane. The plane crashed. Clemente died. And no one even, and again, the 3,000th hit is very meaningless in the big picture.
Sure.
But Clemente got that 3,000th hit on the final, I believe it was the final day of the season. So, great player. Unbelievably great player was Roberto Clemente. And it's one of those before Sports Center guys that no one talks about anymore, but Clemente was unbelievable. Five-tool talent. I read a little biography on him. Off the field, there was, I think because, remember at that time, when you didn't speak the language, sometimes you had communication issues.
Yeah.
And you could come off as moody or surly, and maybe you really weren't.
Right.
Maybe you just couldn't communicate well with the folks who spoke English. But Clemente had a reputation of being difficult. That as he got older through his career, it kind of started to go away a bit. But it was a pretty interesting story. He was a great guy. Loved helping out people. There's a great story about him. And I believe he was going back to his homeland to take supplies after that. I think it was an earthquake. All right. Greatest day in the history of the world, September 30th. Firehouse Sub text the hour 803-404-6100. We'll also Yip with Jay Phillips on our handoff, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine Road. That is next on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, here on The Game. Time to get our Firehouse sub text the hour in just a second. 803-404-6100. Braves now up 3-0. Bottom of the 6th. 2 outs. Oh, the juju. Don't give any updates because we'll ruin the juju.
Well, I said, and when Jay ever puts his headphones on, let's ask him if he thinks the Braves should just be nice and let the Mets win a game.
Just win that second game if the Braves win game 1.
Just let him in for the sake of being nice.
I'm sure Jay would like that.
Yeah.
He'd be all about the love of the Eastern Division, the brotherhood,
of course,
of the NL East. Schwellenbach, 6 scoreless. He's thrown 74 pitches. I'm going to say this. You got to win this game to get in the postseason, correct?
Correct.
My man's thrown 74 pitches. I got to see something really quick. He threw 106 in his start on the 27th.
Why are you doing this to me?
He has thrown 85-plus pitches many times. He's coming out for the 7th if I'm the manager. I ain't screwing around, Jay.
So
I'm bringing Schwellen back.
I'm sorry, I was readjusting here. Yeah, as long as the Braves win today, or not today,
this game,
yeah,
then they're in. That's a given, and that's the most important. But yeah, to your point now, if the Braves split, they get the 5,
right? Yes,
yes,
they'll get the Padres.
But regardless,
I don't want the Padres.
Well, you don't have much of a choice.
I think it's inevitable, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, it's inevitable, sir.
I don't think the Braves can change their position no matter what happens.
Either you play the Padres or you don't play at all.
Oh.
So if you have that choice, what do you want?
Then I misunderstood. All right, then I misunderstood from earlier. Oh, okay. Well, then screw it.
But I said Jay would probably be pro to being nice and just letting the Mets have a position too by splitting the series, right?
You let the Mets in?
Just let him in.
Hell no.
Because Jay's such a
Because I said if you win game 1, you just start picking people out of the stands to play game 2.
Yes, I will go pitch.
Yes.
And you know,
still got a few pitches left in that left arm.
Yeah.
Righty or lefty? I forget.
I'm a righty.
You got a few pitches left in that right arm.
I can still throw a little junk ball.
So you could break 50 on the gun?
Yeah, I'll give you a solid. Once I'm nice and loose, I'll give you a solid 72.
That'd beat me by 70 if I tried, bro. Couldn't break paper at this point if I tried to throw a baseball.
No, I have no idea, man. I have not thrown a baseball hard in. And if you can see me on TV, I don't think you can. Maybe since like Bill Clinton was president.
Did you play? Did you get into those adult baseball leagues after you?
I had one friend who said, "Why don't you go try out for Coach Rain's team? You're better than you think." And I was like, I'm in college, man. I ain't going to do that. And I don't know that I was that good. Anyway, I assure you. Nah, I had some people ask about it. Nah. High school, it was fun. Listen, I feel like Crash Davis. I threw a no-hitter and a one-hitter in high school. It was
That's
cool.
fantastic, man.
It was cool. But I
Jay, you can brag more about your stats. We can't go back and check them.
No, I know.
You know what, Steve, you didn't do it. Now, did you do this? What all of us washed up baseball
down
players?
Rain, y'all?
It's starting to rain,
It's starting to rain.
Oh,
now, did you do what all of us washed up baseball players do, eventually go play slow pitch softball?
Nope.
Never did it?
You know what? What's weird for me, and I don't mind admitting this, as I've told you many times about a lot of things, I'm very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not overly competitive. Like a lot of my, I will say this, like my very, very good close friend Eric Kimry is one of those dudes who hates losing far more than he loves winning, and he is competitive. I mean, he and a buddy of mine were playing ping pong at my house one night. And I was like, you know what? I need to leave my own house.
Because this is getting ugly. This is getting heated. Dudes are diving through the game room.
I love sports, but I'm just not overly competitive in that way of like the drive to just beat you all the time in a sport. Unless I'm like drinking beer and bowling against you, then I want to kick your tail.
Or throwing footballs at bowling pins.
Or that.
Yeah.
But like my competitiveness now is like Elijah went 5-0 in the contest this week. I went 3-2, but Elijah went 5-0.
You're 5-0?
Now I'm mad.
Well, now you are because he whooped you.
Yeah. And now we're tied.
Oh, that's not good either.
Do you play fantasy?
Nah, no? I did a little bit. I had a fantasy baseball team for a couple years, but I don't. Here's another thing about me, okay? I don't like fantasy sports because at some point I'm going to have someone that's going against my team, whether it's the Braves or the Broncos.
Not if you position your roster well.
Well, I tried that a few times.
Yeah,
and
but
so
it depends on how good those teams are.
Yeah, so like the only thing I would really be good or where I would be okay mentally and something like that is NBA because I don't have a team.
There you go.
You know?
There you go. Yeah, I
just looked at that clock and that just freaked me out.
That's
man.
10 o'clock. Yeah, every time I look at it, and
I guess that was a power outage thing that hasn't been changed.
That's why I stopped looking at it.
I thought that was a satellite clock. For real, isn't that a satellite clock? No,
it totally wigged me out earlier today, so I can't look at it.
Okay,
I can't. I did the softball thing for a while.
Yeah,
I loved it. For a while,
I would like it. You know what I really wanted to do? I wanted there was a kickball team, and I was like, I should go do that.
I did 1 year of that for fun.
Yeah,
I played a kickball. But you know what a kickball league is? Let's get drunk.
Yeah,
that's all a kickball league is. Let's get just like volleyball in some places.
But really, in the wheelhouse of life, when I could have done that, my wife and I, with our jobs, I mean, I was working 6 to 8 at night. She traveled. We had young kids.
Well, 6 to 8 at night plus your slow pitch softball.
time. I just don't have. I didn't. I needed to be a dad.
I tell you, I did it for
I got good at Mario Kart there, I'll tell you that.
Really?
I'm good at Mario Kart.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Kids, where's Dad? It's my birthday. Oh, he's playing beer league softball in Charleston this weekend.
I tell you what, like my kids started, my oldest would go with me when I played, like, where it was basketball leagues, slow pitch softball leagues, flag football leagues. They come along with me.
Yeah.
They come hang out.
Yeah.
They thought it was fun hanging out. Until, Dad lost a close game and we're driving home. It wasn't pretty.
I don't know.
Now, honestly, I didn't get that crazy. Once I got to that point of playing in those leagues, I wanted to play well, I wanted to win, but it wasn't like I need to drive around for 20 minutes to get the anger out of me. No, because like slow pitch softball, they're throwing it half a mile an hour.
Yeah.
Come on, let's get perspective.
I get it.
All right, what do you got coming up? Post-game show.
We're going to talk about if UK showed a roadmap for Carolina this weekend.
Very nice. It's coming up next. Nice job, Tyler. We'll do it again tomorrow.